My name is Georgia Gray. I'm a second year medical student at Warwick University. I think a couple of reasons. First reason is that it's the largest graduate course in the UK. So coming at it from sort of a disabled student perspective, it was that there were going to be a wide range of people and a course well used to dealing with a wide range of abilities and adaptations to make, which was sort of really appealing. And in terms of the pastoral support, both from the medical school and from the wider university, that really sort of appealed to me as well. So Warwick was the only school that I applied to that actually sort of agreed to directly meet me and talk about any needs that I might require sort of going in. And I think sort of the starting point for me and for kind of anyone applying is to have a look at this thing they call the HEOPS standards, which list all the sort of physical competencies or things to do with learning differences, mental health, physical health, that have to be met during the application process. And those sort of raise a few questions, and then Warwick were amazing at talking me through how they would be able to support me and what I would have to show them to be considered as an applicant. So I guess there's sort of three levels of support that's been available to me. One at the medical school itself, which has been in terms of putting adaptations in place or talking about examination in terms of extra time and things like that, and then the wider disability service that assists with sort of all things day-to-day in life that you could need help with, disabled student allowance, in terms of study, extra time, extra tutors, etc. that you may need, and then the clinical skills team. There's a clinical skills team based at all three of the hospitals we're based at, and they've been amazing at allowing me sort of extra time to come and work on skills that I might find more challenging, taking blood, putting in cannulas, etc., and actually giving up their time to sort of help me do that, which has been pretty amazing, really. Yeah, I think so in terms of practical tasks and in terms of the practical examinations, you don't get any extra time for that, because if you're on the ward, and I guess the theory is you have to react and you have to be able to meet those competencies in the exact same time as anyone else on the course. So I guess I was a bit worried that maybe I wouldn't be able to do CPR suitably or put in a cannula suitably, etc. And those have been challenges, but then I mean, with the support I've detailed, I managed to kind of figure out different ways to meet those learning outcomes and make sure that I'm not only just able to pass the exams, but I feel comfortable when I start as an F1 to actually be a doctor and sort of meet those core competencies. I'd say first thing is to have a look at that HEOPS guidelines, because actually they cover a wide range of disabilities, things like people with type 1 diabetes, epilepsy, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and the ways in which previous medical students have been able to meet those outcomes. So that's the first document I would have a look at, and then sort of identify where you fall on that document. And then the GMC releases guidelines that they want all F1 doctors across the country to meet. So it can be core practical things like putting a cannula in or putting a catheter in, and to have a look at those and identify for yourself where you might see challenges arising. And what I did when I sort of compared those two documents is to have a talk to Warwick. So I emailed Warwick and I was able to meet with the senior tutor here and say, here are my concerns, and talk about any adaptations that could be made or any changes to sort of education whilst I was at Warwick. So that's what I'd say when you're applying. And then when you are offered a place at Warwick, you're offered it under the provision that they think you can meet those outcomes throughout the course. So no one's going to start on their first day and be able to take blood straight away, but it's more that they've identified that given 4 years and given reasonable adjustments and support, you will be able to meet those outcomes by the end of the 4 years. And so once you get that offer is then conditional on them sort of assessing the ways in which they can help you, and then those details are released sort of later on. So although it sounds kind of quite complicated. I'd say sort of taking it into your own hands, being realistic with what you think you can do, and then just being as open and as honest as possible, because that whole time Warwick has just supported me and said, right, okay, at this level we can help you do this and help you do this and put this in place, and if I hadn't been open with them from the start, then I don't think I would have been anywhere near as successful in being able to get in and going forward with medicine, really. A lot of the time when you're applying as a disabled student to anything, you just see like the barriers and the hoops you have to jump through. But for medicine, one of the core things is that you're empathetic as a doctor, and that's something that you can't teach. And I think actually coming at it from a perspective of having almost been a patient in the National Health Service and having your parents be like patients' parents, it's just meant that automatically I can, and other people in my position can sort of appreciate where that patient is coming from. And I think that's a skill that takes a while to develop and is almost an added bonus of applying. And when you're applying, that's definitely a strength that you should own and you should work with, because it can all seem like barriers, but you are coming at it from a different perspective, and that can be really, really beneficial as you go on in your clinical training.